Hi, I'm here at the Hiroshima Peace Park to tell you a story, and the reason I'm here is the story begins here. It's a story told to me by Connie Ray Andreas, and before that she was told it by someone else, and because just over there is where the very first atomic bomb was ever dropped in 1945, and that's where the story begins. As a result of that event, the Japanese army finally surrendered after years of fighting. The message went out to the Japanese troops saying, the war is over, lay down your weapons. And this was strange because the Japanese army had never surrendered before. So the message got out, but because it was that end of the war, troops were spread far and wide across the Pacific. Some troops never got the message, and when they did, they weren't even sure it was true. So it was well known there were Japanese troops still fighting the Second World War long after it had finished. So it just so happened in the 1950s, there were some Americans practicing maneuvers in the Pacific, and they landed upon an island. As they landed, got themselves onto the beach, suddenly they found shots were ringing out around them. Some of them were seriously injured, and they hunkered down behind the sand dunes, and they realized it was one of those islands populated by Japanese soldiers still fighting a war that was long finished. The commander got his captains together. He said, what are we going to do? The first guy said, I think what we should do is we should take the war to him. That's what he wants. We've got troops. We're here to practice. Let's do that. The second captain said, I think we should just put a perimeter fence around him, keep him at a distance, starving out, and eventually, if we want our mercy, he can come begging for it. The third guy said, I think we should just leave here right now. If you go somewhere else, there's plenty of other islands. Leave him here to rot on his own. Nobody else will come this way. So the commander looked at these options and chose. He sent a message, and in response to this message, just a few days later, Japanese warships steamed into the harbour. And on the harbour side, he looked and he saw, over there, coming down the side of the boat, was a samurai. The samurai was rowed across to where the Americans were, and they greeted each other formally, and then the commander took him into his tent and explained what was going on. He's very pleased to see the samurai was dressed in his finery and carried a very small little wooden box. After they discussed the plan, the samurai walked out to the American troops and up the hill, up the steep hill, through the forest, through the jungle, and finally found himself at the bunker where the Japanese soldier lived. Pushed open the door slowly and went down the steps. It was dark, it was gloomy inside, and there, deep in the heart, he found the Japanese soldier. He was dressed in rags, he was malnourished, but he kept his rifle spotlessly clean all these years. The samurai looked at the soldier, and the soldier looked at the samurai, wondering what he was doing there. The samurai turned to the Japanese soldier and he said, I would like to thank you on behalf of the Empire and the people of Japan for showing the most extraordinary devotion to duty. I'd like to give you this. And he opened the box, and inside the box was the highest medal that could be given to the soldier. He pinned it to the rags, the tunic of the samurai, and embraced the soldier and said to him, I thank you on behalf of the people and the Empire for your valor. Slowly he led him out of the bunker and down through the forest, through the jungle, back down to the beach. And as he did, he explained how times had changed, how the world had moved on, how America and Japan were no longer enemies, now they were allies, working together for a new future. The Japanese soldier understood how life had changed, how times had moved on, and was surprised at first, but recognized the truth in what the samurai was saying. As he reached the Japanese soldiers, he reached the American troops on the beach. It's a strange feeling amongst the Americans. A few days ago this guy had been shooting at them, now he seemed to be treated like some kind of war hero. They weren't sure what to make of it. But as he got closer and closer and they saw ragged, malnourished, they thought to themselves, who would I have to be? What would it take to be somebody who is able, when you're met with hundreds of enemies, it's just one of you, you remember your orders, you stick to them. When you haven't seen anybody for years, you remember your orders and you stick to them. Who would you have to be that kind of person? And they began to see him in a new light, and they began to think to themselves, you know what, if ever I was in a tight spot, in a difficult situation, that's the kind of guy I want on my side. Someone who's, if he says he's going to go and get you help, you can count on him to come back with help. And they thought, what would it take for me to be like that? Someone that dependable, that consistent. So, as the Japanese soldier finally reached the American lines, the lines opened to let him through. the enmity had gone, and instead the Americans began to applaud him, as they recognized him both for who he was, someone like them, one of their own, but also someone they could aspire to be like. So, I hope you find that an interesting story that makes important recognition of truths for you. All the way from the site of the Hiroshima bomb, which now, of course, is a place